We're Hasani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Hasani.
And I'm Jeff.
This is the Couples Academy Show. We're continuing in our conversation on narcissism. The last couple of days we've been diving deep, and yesterday Jeff and I kind of unpacked one of the types of narcissists that exist, and we're going to hit the other 3 today. So I hope that you got paper and pen and you have a good seat, because you're going to be taking some notes today. It's going to be like, oh my God, that's exactly who I am. That's exactly who my spouse is. That's exactly what I've been. Thank God I'm not that anymore. So listen, let's get ready. But before we get started, this weekend is Unearthed. Danielle and the girls are preparing. They're leaving today for an amazing weekend. So if you're a part of this weekend experience, I'm excited for you. If you're not, there's always next time. Foundry retreat is going to be coming up. Foundry and Unearthed starts next week. So if you haven't registered, make sure you do so for that. And then next weekend is the last chance weekend. So there's still room. You know, we're busy, but we're busy wanting to make impact on the lives of others. So we thank you all for being a part of our community and allowing us to pour into you. Now, let's dive deep into this conversation because there's so much to get to. Just as a really quick recap, the 4 types of narcissism or narcissists. We have the covert narcissist. That's what we unpacked yesterday. But today we're going to cover the other 3. So number 1, we have the cerebral narcissist. This is the person who leans into his or her intelligence. Then you have the somatic narcissist. This is the person who uses their physical prowess to assert themselves. And then you have the spiritual narcissist. This is the one who is holier than thou, right? And so you're going to see how whatever area of competence they operate in, that is where their arrogance shows up. I think it's great that we were just talking about this before the show, that, man, we know these 3 very well. What were we saying earlier, Jeff?
These are the 3 we know. The covert narcissist, we spend more time on that because that one's one people haven't seen or don't recognize as narcissism. But these 3 we know very well. We see them all the time. We see them in our church. We see them on Instagram, right? We see them on the debate stages of the world where they have to know more than everybody else. We know these 3 very well.
So let's dive into the cerebral narcissist. One of the characteristics, number 1, they need to appear more intellectual than everyone else. This is the individual that has to tell you how smart they are and how many degrees they have and how many books they've read. And they're always referencing, people you probably have never heard of. And they're dropping, dimes and information, and they're intellectualizing everything, and you're looking at them like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, that's what they lean in with, and oftentimes they may do it to create a separation between their high intellectual capacity and your know-nothingness.
And when they're challenged, they're deadly argumentative about it, even when they don't have their facts in order.
It's a real thing. Another characteristic of this particular personality type, they want to be the center of attention. Like, they're the ones who will suck up the energy in the room, or the oxygen in the room, I should say. Everyone has to know that they have arrived. They will do things to draw all attention towards them. They become louder. They interject. They one up other individuals. This is like, it gives them life to know that everybody is, in the paw of their hand.
Mm-hmm. So if you notice, there's a common theme here: center of attention, right? And that's the whole key here is they have to be heard. Their focus is on what other people are hearing. What you're going to find is that all these relate to the 5 senses in some way, shape, or form. These people are not as concerned about how they look physically sometimes. They're not, but they're intellectually, they have to be smarter than everyone else. They want to be seen as someone who is on another level better than anyone else, and they cannot be challenged.
Absolutely. Another characteristic is that they demand authority. Like they have to be a part of the ruling class. They have to be the leader. They have to be the director. They have to be the one making the decisions because others aren't as smart or as intelligent as they. So, how dare they follow someone else's lead? Obviously, everyone's got to follow this person's lead.
Absolutely. I mean, and the reason why I'm so adamant about this narcissist thing is because I know for a fact I've been at least all four of these at different phases in my life. And the key to it is really insecurity.
Interesting.
The
Interesting.
baseline is insecurity. I really don't internally feel, so I need to outwardly express. You know, they're the narcissists are the kings of fake it till you make it.
Let's go to the next one. I thought this was quite interesting. There's less interest in sex. Interestingly, an intellectual and someone who has intellectual prowess, they will get engaged in conversations and they will get off in conversation. That is their high. That is it's almost like a lot of times they may engage in intellectual masturbation. You know how we use that term a lot? So any type of physical stimulus is not of interest to them. They get more of a high through the intellectual capacity and exchange. And so sometimes they're like, I would never engage in any type of relations with certain types of people because they're not on my level. They're not smart enough. And that's operating in your lower self. I operate from a higher level. And so that feeds into the narcissist as well.
What you're going to find is that when you simplify all of these, when you simplify them down and boil them down, the tendency for scholars is to over intellectualize everything, use big words. But when you learn to simplify and boil these down, the cerebral narcissist has narcissism of the mind, right? The one that we talked about yesterday, the covert narcissist has of the emotion or the heart. We'll talk a little bit more about the others. The somatic is of the body, and the spiritual is obvious. It's narcissism of the spirit.
How interesting in more ways than one. Here's the next one. They lack empathy. And I think this is a good point. Over the last 2 days, one of the people who watches the show has been sending questions and asking, what is the difference between empathy and sympathy? You know, and we can that's a show within itself, but to simplify it, sympathy is when I have some type of remorse, but I'm looking through it from my perspective and through my lens. So I may have some level of, concern for you, but from my perspective. Empathy is more or less, I'm looking at the situation through your eyes. I'm listening to it through your ears. I'm feeling it with your heart. It's more of a compassion that I'm demonstrating because I'm trying to walk in your shoes through this particular situation to better understand from your perspective.
Sympathy is logically relating to someone, understanding their situation because you know the narrative and you know the story and you know the outcome and you can see why they would be that way. Empathy is I actually feel what you're going through. Right?
Yeah. And I think that's the difference.
One is more emotional.
And this is where a lot of couples have a disconnect because they're not emotionally connected. They're distant, not just physically, but emotionally. There's less of a care, of a compassion, of a willingness to look at it through another person's lens or to walk in their shoes. And that creates oftentimes the disconnect. And so this is why we feel like oftentimes we're alone in our own world. Nobody cares for us. Our spouse doesn't give us the grace, if you will, the understanding, the patience, the love. And so I hope that answers your question from a simple perspective. One is a matter of the head. The other one is a matter of the heart. But let's transition into the spiritual narcissist, because this is a narcissist of a different kind. Some of the characteristics, number one, they constantly reference their own achievements, particularly if they are spiritual related. Like this is the person who talks about how they just got off of a 40-day fast and they've been sitting on the mountains with God and receiving revelation. And see, there's nothing wrong with sharing your life, but when you do it from a braggadocious way, when you do it from a position where you want other people to know how wonderful, how great, how close to God, how pure you are, that's when you're leaning into narcissism. Like there's nothing wrong with referencing scripture. Like, we do that on the show all the time, but when it's done in a way, a moralizing way, to set yourself apart.
Just to be seen, right? It's not really that they actually feel or live or act in that way truthfully. They are doing it to be seen. So it's one thing for someone to show you an example of, hey, look, if I read the Bible from front to back, you can do it too. That's someone who's trying to do it in a healthy way, showing that you're capable of it. But when someone who's a spiritual narcissist is going to be like, I've done this and you will never be able to reach my level. Narcissism is all about them and you're not what they are. And that's really to fill, like you said before.
Very, very, very true. Another characteristic of the spiritual narcissist, they do a good job of invading conversations. Now, I don't think that the spiritual narcissist monopolizes this one. I could see this showing up in a few others, even with the intellectual narcissist. But in essence, they always have to somehow get in the midst of your conversation to interject their position. These are individuals who are not really good listeners. They have to be heard and they have to be seen, and they will shift the conversation in their direction. They will take over and dominate a conversation that they weren't a part of in the first place, so that they can insert their authority as it relates to what they know, or their spiritual authority, whatever it may be. And it becomes very obvious. Like the person who's doing it, they've been doing it forever. That's all they know. They don't even realize what they're actually doing. But others who are involved in this and who are observing this can see it from a mile away. It's a classic sign of narcissism. Another thing, Jeff, is like the people who always try to make the conversation about them. No matter what the conversation is, somehow it's redirected to them. Now they're telling their story and their experiences. And it's like, dude, we weren't even talking about that.
Yeah, and we have to be careful because there are people who have earned it. Most of the times with a narcissist, they haven't earned it. So there's some validity in some things. Like if a man who's actually been studying the Bible for years and years and years gets up and speaks, and you haven't, and you want to have a debate with that person about something, they're typically not going to yield to you. There's a difference between confidence and this arrogance, right? Because this arrogance comes with a tinge of they cannot hear another perspective. They're always, whatever team they've chosen is the only team. Whatever it is, there's no room for anything to contradict a narcissist. Because if you contradict a narcissist, you are telling them that everything that they're displaying is a lie, and they cannot take that. They will not take that.
Yeah, very, very true. Here's another characteristic. They twist scripture. So they always are injecting their philosophy, their interpretation, their research, what they have found. And oftentimes it's off of the beaten path from where I guess most traditionally would be in terms of their understanding of scripture. Like there's always the way that they turn it in their direction to benefit their feeling, their opinion, their approach. And I've seen it done by people in leadership. I've seen it done by pastors. I've seen it done by laymen. And so it's something that is often done. But here's another one, Jeff. They profess love, but never show it. What good is quoting scripture if you don't live it, if you don't display it?
The key telltale signs of almost every narcissist is that whatever they profess, they do not live. Okay? So they will talk about it, but they won't be about it. If you hold them to the test and shine the light down, they scurry like a cockroach because they are not really living that. And so they attack back because everything is an attack on them. Anything that contradicts the Bible says a wise man loves reproof, right? One of the ways that you can tell someone is the opposite of that, because if you can criticize somebody and they can take it, they're probably not a narcissist, okay? But if you're criticizing someone who's a narcissist, they will defend, deny, even if there's blatant video evidence in front of their face.
Wow. I tell you, this is an interesting conversation. Listen, we're going to continue it right after this break. We're going to get into the somatic narcissist and then talk about what you need to do in your relationship if you are one or are with one. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
All right, guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show with Hasani and Jeff. We're talking about narcissism. More particularly, what type of narcissist are you, or what type of narcissist are you involved with in your relationship? So once again, we were talking about the covert narcissist. Then we tapped into the intellectual narcissist. Then what did we talk about? The spiritual narcissist. And now we're going to dive into what we will call the somatic narcissist. Now, the somatic narcissist, this is a person who physically may be very appealing. They look good, they dress well, physical fitness is very important to them. And so that is the lens that they live through. And so their arrogance, their narcissism stems from that particular place. So let's go through some of these characteristics. Number one, they obsess over food, weight, fitness, and appearance. Yeah, I'm sure we know people like this. Like, they're always in the mirror. Everything has to be perfect. Like, they're always on the scale, monitoring their weight. Everything has to be prim, perfect, because their value and their worth is in their physical appearance, Jeff.
Instagram queens and kings, right? So they're the ones who literally can be involved in something amazing. It's still all about them. Selfie, 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 right? But it's not like they just want to take pictures for memories. It's really about capturing how wonderful they are in that moment, even if it's not true.
Very true. This may be the type of person who's constantly kind of looking into cosmetic surgery, plastic surgery. They have to have all the right clothes. They have to buy the most expensive fitness equipment. They've got to have all of the makeup. And obviously these things are important, period. But I'm talking about the person who takes it to a whole nother level because their value, their self-worth, and their esteem is attached to these particular things, which can somewhat be unhealthy.
And they're never happy or satisfied with it. Like internally, this is key, because you can easily see people who actually care a lot about their appearance who are not any of these things. But when you get this type of narcissist, they have a hard time praising other people for their beauty. And if they do, they're secretly putting them down somewhere else.
Interesting. Another characteristic of the somatic narcissist is they'll use sex for their own self-esteem. Now, interesting when we're talking about that, this can show up in many ways. Oftentimes the serial infidelity or adulterer, the one who's in multiple affairs, it's yes, sex is great, but is what they're using it for. A person who has any type of compulsive sexual behavior, or they're always in pursuit of a trophy partner, right? They're using, go ahead, Jeff.
Notch on the belt.
The notch on the belt. Exactly. And so they can be very manipulative when it comes to their sexual partners because of what they're gaining from it. Some people use sex to feel worthy, to have a sense of esteem, to make themselves feel good. I tell you, and we say this all the time. Like even if you're talking about money, the reason why a lot of couples struggle and have a bad issue within their relationship because they don't have the right relationship with money. So the wrong relationship with money will impact how we relate to one another. Likewise, an unhealthy or wrong relationship with sex in terms of how we use it and what we're trying to get out of it can also create problems within a relationship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I want you to notice something, Hasani. Look at the 4 securities and take the financial section of that and make it intellectual. And they match up. These are 4 insecurities that are going on. And what they're doing is they may be strong in one area. Maybe their strength is in how they look. They do that to make up for the deficit that they have in their spirituality, the deficit that they have in their connection with other people through the emotional security. And they're looking at the deficit that they may have in finances. Okay, so what they'll do is they'll focus on their looks and praise that up because they feel empty in the other areas. And each one of these, the spiritual narcissist, we focused on his spirituality because he doesn't have the money, he doesn't have the looks, and he doesn't have the, like, in their own minds even. They could look amazing, but in their minds, they're deficit in other areas. So they want you to see the one thing that they know they're good at. Focus on me. But really what's happening is there's an emptiness and a hollowness that will and must be filled in order for this to cause any kind of healing. And this is why in Foundry, we focus on the 4 securities.
Yes.
Because once you become strong in all of these areas, there's no need to display. You might be overly confident, but there's no need for arrogance to put down someone else. It's about, hey, look what I did. Come with me. I can show you, as opposed to, hey, look at me. I'm better than you.
Do me a favor, Jeff, because you're mentioning the 4 securities. I don't want you to get into a long explanation because we only have a few minutes, but quickly list the 4 securities that we talk about in Foundry, really quickly.
4 securities are spiritual, emotional, physical, and financial. And when we
Pause. Spiritual, emotional, physical, financial. We're talking about the somatic. We're talking about the intellectual, the covert, and what was the 4th one? The cerebral. So you're right. It's the complete opposite. It's the insecure reality of the securities that we teach. This couldn't be more spot on. It couldn't be more spot on. I want to go to this comment, Jeff. Christy says, the way that you guys describe it, we all are guilty of a lot of these traits. My eyes have opened about myself for sure, but maybe if the negative that's attached to this is replaced with us being human, we could all help one another feel more connected and less affairs would happen. Boom.
See, we're not these magical, horrible human beings. We all have the ability to be great, But when we feel empty in one area that we have a desire connected to, we will overemphasize many times something that we are good at to hide what we know we're not good at. And that's where narcissism can, not always, but can show up.
So true. Here's another characteristic of the somatic narcissist. They take credit for your accomplishments, not just their own, for your accomplishments.
How many
So
bosses do we know that have done that?
like, yeah, you got a degree, but listen, it's because of what I did to set yourself up to even be able to do it. Yeah, I know you took the classes and you studied, but if it wasn't for my contribution and how I supported you, it's just like, good God, And so that may be true, right? Especially in a relationship where you're taking turns, who's going to do what, get what for the advancement of each of you. And then, it helps you as a couple. But it's just like you're robbing them of their own experience because you're taking credit for it. What a serious problem.
I've literally been all of these at different times in my life. And it's because of the insecurity. If you asked my mother before high school, I would have never shown up with this not shaved and all that. So that just was not me. I went in the military. For some reason that changed. But I used to get dressed. I would take 3-4 showers a day. I would have to be prim and proper. I'd have to get my hair cut a certain way. Everything had to look a certain, and that's because I, at one point, felt insecure about my looks. And I did this to overcompensate for it, right? At one point in my life, and I know, Hasani, you remember this one well, I was intellectually correct on everything that I ever talked about. I had no room for debate or argument on anyone because I was using my mind because I was no longer focused on my looks. And at one point, it was a spiritual thing because I knew and I had read the Bible this many times and I did the Quran this many times and I've studied every religion in the world and you don't know anything because I felt deficits, right? And then at other times it was about money. So, I was all of these and I've been the covert as well. Like, look at me, look how much pain has been caused to me and you can't possibly understand what I've gone through. Right?
Jeff, what I think is important for people to understand about this is that you said you've experienced all 4 of these, and to the point of the person who made the comment, we many of us can identify with these traits, but it doesn't mean that you are a classified, by definition through testing, right? Narcissist. Narcissistic personality disorder is something completely different than an individual who operates in narcissistic tendencies. And that's the distinction that we want to draw, which lets you all know that there is still hope for your marriage, for your relationship, for what you're going through. Because if many of us have had it and have changed and are changing, the same could be true for your reality as well.
Mm-hmm. And this is just emotional. It's a narcissism is a form of emotional abuse used to control other people so that they feel self-important. And one of the ways that you'll know that this is abusive is you'll have like a constant feeling that something's wrong with you. You'll question your self-worth. You'll feel overly concerned about your perceived failures and flaws. This is what's going to happen if you're around a narcissist. You're going to have a difficulty knowing what's real and not because they twist the truth and manipulate reality. You're going to end up holding them in high regard for some reason, even though you don't really like being around them. You're going to do whatever they tell you to do at some particular point until you break. And then you'll notice that you start pulling away from friends and family. These are the effects of the emotional abuse that a narcissist will hold. So their traits are all basically control, frighten, abuse. That's what they do. That's the 3 things: control, frighten, and abuse.
So folks, I hope this was helpful. I hope you got something out of today. I hope that you realize, wow, there is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Things can turn around. When you are committed to your own personal growth and development, committed to becoming the best version of yourself, then these tendencies can become a thing of the past. You do not have to live with this. You do not have to deal with this. If you commit yourself to a process, and that's what Foundry is for, that's what Unearthed is for, that's what we're all about. And so reach out to us. We would love to work with you. But until then, see you tomorrow for Relationship Q&A. That's right. It's Ask the Experts. See you guys. Take care.